So today's conversation is going to be based on a subject that I think everything is misunderstood. So there's that. But a subject that I think is one that everybody kind of thinks they get right, but nobody really gets right because I don't think there's such thing as right. But we're going to talk about beta and what does it mean to prepare customer service for beta. So my philosophy is that customer service people have to be true subject matter experts on your business. So, how do you cram in a bunch of knowledge and unknowns into someone to represent your company ad hoc? Because it's going to be as needed depending on what comes up. And sometimes in real time, if you opt for chat and phones. And how do you prepare them for that when it's something that they've never seen? Because you're essentially going into a gray area. So, I think today we'll talk about the purpose of beta. What would you hope to get out of it? Beta's gone wrong, and hopefully beta's gone right. So my name is Ty, and I am the founder and CEO of CX Collective. And we work with companies that are either startups that are in stealth mode, companies that are growing, meaning they need to mature, or companies that are experiencing exponential growth, meaning that they cannot keep up. That's really our bread and butter, but we like to work with everyone. So that's a little bit about me. Been in CX for 20 plus years. I am going to jump to Chloe because she wasn't here last time and we missed you. So
Hi, everyone. I'm Chloe. I'm the CX Operations Manager at The Collective. I've been successfully building and managing customer service teams for almost 10 years now in a wide variety of different industries. And I've learned a lot over the years, and I'm excited to share some of that knowledge with you guys and also continue to learn from you guys as well.
excellent. Who do we want to have now? Let's do Jordan. We're going to go out of order today.
Great. Hi, I'm Jordan. I'm a CX Operations Manager here at The Collective. I've been helping build and scale support teams, especially in like the tech startup space for the past 6 years, and gone through a lot of successful and also like room for growth betas. We've learned a lot, so excited to talk about that today.
Very cool. And then last but not least, we have Miss Hashim.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sasheen. I am CX strategist with the Collective. I've been with this wonderful group of people for just a little over a year. Got 20 years experience in customer service in all different types of businesses and roles ranging from agent to head of. And I'm excited for this conversation because I have had my share of beta and all the wonderful things that can happen in those scenarios.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. All right, so we're going to jump right in. I'm going to go on with the first question. So anyone can grab this one, obviously. But what I'd like to know is in your history, having been responsible for preparing for beta, what steps did you take to prepare your customer service team for the beta launch?
I think like step one is like as a CX leader, ingratiate yourself with the like team who is like the product engineering team. I feel like I say this every episode, but at a previous company, it was like we already had a suite of products and it was like they were launching a new product in beta. And like first thing to do is like get with them, like make sure they know like you're there for giving them that feedback what that comes from the customer and like get what they want, but then like make sure that they know that things are going to go wrong and like you need to build that relationship with them to make sure there's that feedback back and forth. So I think like that's step one. And then step two is like asking questions, getting all the training materials, like prepare what you can prepare for. Obviously things are going to go wrong at launch, like unanticipated bugs and things are going to happen, but get everything you can to like train your team. And then just be prepared to move fast when things inevitably break.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think that being in a space of anticipation is important and preparing the team. Like we know what we know, but then there's a lot that we don't know that's going to come through, and how to manage that and escalate it if needed, and who the point people are in spaces of escalation, because there can be moments where it seems like it's overwhelming and like it's a hot mess express because it's like, ooh, this is new and like we need tech, but we don't know if we need tech. Whose decision is it? I mean, you're going through all those spaces where you have like this group of people that have this one role or these couple things that they're supervising, but then there's always going to be a scenario where it's just going to come from left field. And so taking deep breaths, kind of saying it's going to work itself out, it's going to be all right, and being, you know, just having those kind of understandings of avenues of escalation is important too.
I agree with that for sure.
I think to go off of what Jordan and Sasheen were saying, scheduling is really important. You want to make sure that the appropriate people are on standby. You know, if you get a major influx of tickets, you know, things like that. So I think anticipating a good, solid schedule is important.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to add to that using real life example. We actually have a client right now who is in beta. And obviously, as they started to bring in their beta group, they did it in segments and then chunks. And now we're starting to get to the point where, you know, there were 4 tickets for the week, and then literally in one day that doubled. And then between yesterday and today, that's even more. And so we're going, let's make sure that we have the resources to support the growing beta. And there's also a lot of information that we're finding out, because I always talk about theory and practice, right? So theoretically, we think about when we're setting up these betas, we're thinking about, as Hashim would say, all of the things. You know, we're thinking about your policies, the processes, the FAQs. Like, we're really trying to put all of that information out there, because theoretically you need those things. But then once you flip that switch and you turn it on, we're like, oh, actually, the customer is expecting you to do this, right? So I think that's something that we will find in any beta is you'll learn your customer expectations, right? Another thing I think you'll learn, and both Sasheen and Jordan touched on this one, is what's broken, right? If you're the one who's building it, doesn't mean that you haven't used it the way that someone's going to use it. So I want to ask you guys, what challenges have you faced in getting customer service up and running during a beta phase?
The struggles of the internal team, especially the tech team. There was a lot of, in my spaces, in my experience, because I think that there's an attachment for the people that build the product, and they can't see through the weeds necessarily, because they're so engulfed in what they think is the functionality of that product. And so when things do break or there's bugs, it's been interesting to have those conversations of what they think is a bug versus what's an actual bug from the customer side, and having to prove that, and the fact of, you want to get this fixed for the customer, period.
Yeah.
And then the challenges and the communication breakdowns of what the tech thinks is not a problem.
Yeah.
And so that has been I know internally, just that's been a big problem as far as just trying to resolve those type of issues, and especially in beta, because that's really that space to navigate and kind of fix the things that are broken or what bugs really are. But having the conversation of what's a bug versus not has been a big challenge, I know, for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, like, on the product side of things, a beta, like, partially you're releasing it because you know there's going to be bugs and things that need to be fixed. But I think a lot of the times partially you're releasing it because, like, the timeline, you need to get something out at some point, but you still have new features you want to build, not just bugs. And so finding that priority, like, usually, like, I understand, like, the product teams, like, they've got directives from other teams and, like, above that are, like, forcing them to do things. And so I think it's definitely complicated.
Yeah.
I think another big challenge, of course, like what Jordan said, is anticipating what's going to come in. So, you know, and then, you know, just figuring out the processes from there and then quickly building them out. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That actually, that kind of brings me to another question, which is, how do you guys ensure that customer service is actually ready for beta, I should say? I think collectively, go figure collectively, I think we do a good job of, like, really looking at each scenario from sometimes 4 perspectives. We go very, very deep to try to figure out, like, what could potentially come up. But then there are still those things that come up that we didn't anticipate. I know that one of the ways that we'll prepare is, like, creating the training documentation, so that, you know, at any moment, whoever joins, as Chloe mentioned, when you need to add someone in right away, can they come in and what can they do now? That's always one way to be ready. But the other thing is dealing with issues. The way that I've known to deal with some of the issues, and that ties into what Sasheen's saying about being able to identify a bug versus not. Is it a bug or is it user error, right? One way we do that is by whatever your CRM is, integrating that with your dev team's CRM, teaching the CX team to be the like kind of like the triage team to like collect whatever information. But that definitely requires a relationship. And I feel like Jordan talks a lot about building those relationships. But what are some other ways that we can ensure that the CS team will be ready for any issues that could potentially arise?
Knowing the product that it is, like what is the service and product, and really building the knowledge around what do we know about this? What is the expectation around this product or service that we are delivering to the customer? And in the most simplest, what the customer journey also. This is what we expect the customer to go through in their journey, as far as onboarding, as far as setting up accounts, whatever the case may be, but making sure they have those basics really solidified and understood, I think is really good in that space because they're at least got that kind of level one, and then making and preparing them to say, hey, there's going to be things that you're not going to know. This is a paid space, and really setting that expectation that we're all learning and there's no punishments or any negative space no repercussions for not knowing something. This is beta. And really, because there's people that come into customer service roles and not understand what beta is. So it's really helping them understand what this is, what the goal is here, and where the expectations are, and then being able to say, be vocal, really communicate what's going on from your experience as well as from the customers. I think is huge.
It makes sense. And
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I should say also, I think like having like somebody on the team, whether it's you as a CX leader or somebody on your team that's like responsible for like looking at the issues like holistically and like categorizing them, so you can like see like, okay, we were prepared for this amount of things, but we weren't for this, and like being able to update your documentation or like send out messages to your team like, hey, we had 10 issues of this new thing we didn't expect. Here's how you answer those going forward.
That's a really good point. And then I feel like that communication funnel, if you will, of information around like what's actually happening, that coupled with seeing what's the saying we were trying to say this last time, seeing the forest through the trees, right? It is very difficult to do both, because if you don't instruct your team, like we're actually working with someone right now, and Chloe is like the main POC. It's a newer CX leader. And with this particular person, we're trying to get them used to managing and running the team as a head of CX. And so that means that they now have to look at the company holistically. You have to take a step back, right? And then what we're trying to teach this not new leader, but this leader to do is to instruct the team on what is important to communicate to the leader so that that leader can communicate out, right? So are there any ways that you can think of to like phrase or frame that instruction, right? Like one of the biggest challenges we hear is not in CXC specifically, but like in my time as head of CX is we don't understand like what the issue is, or the issue's not big enough, or it's just a small number of people, right? But that pain point still lives with the front line. So how do you communicate to the front line? How would you do it, I should say? How would you communicate to the front line? Hey, this is when you need to like, raise your hand. Is it after so many issues or a type of issue?
I think it's after so many issues. Usually I'll say if 3 or more people are experiencing the same thing, then we need to look into it. And then details.
Yeah.
Get as many details as you can from the customer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found that when you, because I get what that means, right? If you were to say someone, we get 3 complaints and the person says, hey, I've got an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sign into the website, or reset password link isn't working. Living through that currently, right? When you have that information and then the instruction to the front line is get as much information as possible, I would venture to say that they would love to, but they don't know what information to get. So let's run with an example of someone's unable to complete an order online. right? They're on the website, they're trying to place an order, but the order is not going through. They're receiving an error. What kind of information should we instruct that CX person to collect to send to the dev team or the product team or whomever?
Well, in an order space, you want to make sure that you isolate where in the journey the customer's having the problem. Because is it the fact that they're not able to add a product to their cart? It's all going to connect in a different way. Is it a payment processing error? It's like really capturing the detail around where exactly in your journey are you having the error. And then really instructing the team to say, hey, if they've got, I know it can be a pain point to ask, but a lot of times tech wants those screenshots to understand fully what the problem is.
Yeah.
So there's that, capturing those details too. So instructing the team, like if somebody comes across and it's a bill payment issue, these would be the instructions. We would need a screenshot because this may go to actually accounting, you know what I mean? Or the person who's the admin for the payment platform versus an actual tech problem, which is the website itself or the product pages that would then go to the tech team and say, well, we need to capture which product that is. So make sure you take a screenshot, because the customer service person might be able to do that and say this thing. Another thing that they can do is run it with the customer, meaning that the customer service person, if they have that type of access, is actually able to replicate the issue. And then they're able to fully then detail and understand what's going on. So both scenarios, instructing the team to do that and walk them through, maybe have a little mini training, an example always seems to help in those scenarios.
Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think being able to replicate the issue is like something, if you can send that to your dev team, those steps, like they will love you forever. And so, and then it'll make their jobs easier. They'll get the problem fixed sooner, and so the customers will be happier. I think that's key, listing those steps. I think also an example with the beta this week, a customer reached out with an issue. I was able to go and replicate it on my end as well. So, okay, they've reported the issue and I can do this myself. And like, I think training your team to have that troubleshooting mentality and like try to figure out, like, maybe you can set guidelines for like severity of issue as well. Like, is this a critical issue? Is this a major issue? Like coming up with that nomenclature and empowering your team to do that, I think has worked really well for me in the past.
I like that. I have an interesting question for you all. CSAT during beta. Yay or nay? What do you think?
I kind of think no. Why do I say that? I think it's too early.
Yeah.
I
agree. Take class. Yeah, you too. Yeah. Jordan's going,
CSAT, I like have very mixed feelings about overall, but I think like you shouldn't penalize agents for CSAT during beta probably, but I think it's always good to collect customer feedback. And then you can see like a before and after as well. Like it doesn't ever hurt to get customer feedback, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the time to really capture the content that the customer is conveying, because that's really the time to get to know the customer. It's, the person, the people that are using it. That's where that valuable feedback, especially in a beta space, because you can iterate on the platform before you go live. So you really want to capture that versus a survey. I mean, it depends on, of course, the business and what the product is. Some people have that built into beta where we're going to ask you for a survey and this is what it is. And they're very robust in that space. But yeah, that's a valuable time just to communicate and talk with the customer.
I think because beta is designed to test the product, that doing CSAT is allegedly, and I'm with Jordan on these feelings around CSAT, allegedly supposed to measure your experience with the person. So at that point, I guess it's going to come down to, are you satisfied with the outcome? Which you may or may not be, because you were trying to do something you couldn't do. And I just spoke to someone this week who was saying, like, should we turn on CSAT? And I said, you can, but understand that the customer is not really thinking about whether or not they were happy with the person they spoke to. The question is, were they happy with the outcome, which is often beyond that person's realm of control. And I think in beta, you're going to find a lot of stuff that goes wrong. So I think I would just say save CSAT. That whole area needs a lot of work. We'll talk about that one for sure another day. There was something that came up in the conversation a couple times that I'm just going to kind of segue into. And that one is tech's involvement in CS. I've seen a few times where the person who's responsible for bringing in or setting up systems is calling the shots on customer experience. And it's actually one of my biggest pet peeves. And I feel like we see it, I know. We see it a lot in the beta space. The head of tech or the tech guy is like, this is how it should go. And it's like, well, Mr. Tech person, I'm not saying that you're totally wrong because you know how to make these systems work. However, the experience of the customer is very different than just making the system work. So I'd love to get your opinion. How heavily should the head of tech be in the beta process? How involved, I should say. I don't know what I said, but what I was trying to say is how involved should they be in the CX process? Or should CX be informing tech what is needed and tech should be complying?
It's a slippery slope. Why I say that is I think that one, it boils down to the leadership of the whole company and where they think that the priority is on departments. Mm-hmm. So there's that part, and why that person in tech finds themselves, right? Maybe because there is no head of CX yet, and that tech person takes on that space. So there's that part. If you have both leaders in place or both departments in place, I kind of think it would be best for the customer experience program in and of itself, for CX to lead the helm on, here's the tech issue, and please help us fix that. Because I think that tech is, like, as you say, is like they built it. They're expecting things to go a certain way, but being so deep in the program itself, it's hard for them to see that. So they've got to be open to that feedback. And I know that's challenge. That can be very challenging. So yeah, that's just my take. I think that CX should really do that part.
Anybody else have an opinion?
I think it's a negotiation. Okay.
I
think like on the CX side, like we just have to see ourselves as customer advocates and like translate that feedback into the like a way that the tech side of things will appreciate. I think like that's like a skill that's I've like had to hone over my career. To like, if you want to get stuff done, you've got to modify your language in a way that will like get the results you want, depending on who your audience is. And so I think in like the case of like a beta, like if there's things like we're getting feedback from the customers about how like language on the website is unclear in certain ways, it might support things like we've said earlier to the team. But I think yeah, just relaying that feedback and figuring out how to do it in a way that they'll appreciate is important.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think there has to be a very clear definition of roles and responsibilities when it comes to this. I had a client a couple of years ago, it seems like yesterday, and that was exactly the case. The tech team was so involved with customer service, but they didn't deliver the information properly and completely bypassed customer service managers. So SOPs weren't getting made. There was so much confusion. The chain of command was completely skewed. And ended up, it didn't work out because they had gotten themselves into such a big hole because they didn't do it. They didn't do the communication properly. So I think if you define the roles and how information gets distributed, it could be it could be a successful relationship.
Yeah.
I've experienced that too.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard because you have the tech support and then you have CS support, and that gets very gray. That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
I think I'm a little jaded because there have been a few times that I've gone into companies either as, CXC or as an employee back in, I guess, a while back now, but that's happened. And the tech person had decided on all the tools. But it's funny because the customer is the most important aspect of any business, because if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So how do we choose tech and then let tech inform CS when what the customer wants and what that system can do may be very different, versus letting the customer determine what they want to create a good experience for them, because that's who you're trying to satisfy. Now on the tech side, there's a lot that can be done, automation, efficiencies and things like that. But I do feel like we should, and I'm biased, so that's just that. But the lens that we should look at the experience through is the customer's lens. what do they expect? Because anything that we're doing other than what they expect is wasted time, energy, and effort. That's what I think. All right, we're going to head to our final question. Close to final, because we'll do some closing thoughts, but final question. And this one we actually touched on last week's episode, because Sasheen brought it up and I thought that it was good. Chloe didn't get to jump in on this one, so I'd love to hear your perspective, but we're going to put a spin on it and we're going to apply it to beta. So my question is, how does AI help the beta process for CX? Now, I'll start because I know I threw that one at you. My thought is, your product, your service that you created and developed, you are the AI, right? Now, what AI can help with is the general things that are conceptual. You know, what's the best way to greet the customer? What do people like? What tone of voice? AI is amazing for that. But can AI, at least right now, to my knowledge, and maybe I'm ignorant to this, but I don't know that AI can tell a user how to use your specific product, because you have to tell AI how to use your product, so then it can tell your user. So I think that there's always going to be some benefits to it, because it has helped me a lot. But I don't think that AI is going to be able to replace the support person for your particular product at a certain level. But I'm happy to be disagreed with. What do you guys think?
I just had that conversation. Like, yeah, I was saying that AI is never going to replace the human element.
Yeah.
The human element has to be able to build the boundaries around the AI, and it has to be trained. I mean, one of my challenges with working on businesses that are trying to do like all the channels in their beta space. That's another thing that's interesting about beta. They think that everybody's going to reach out to them with all the channels. That may not be the case, but chatbots, and then, you know, that whole part of anticipating all this stuff to come through, and it doesn't work out because it's always where the AI is going to break down at some point in time. And like you said, the business is the AI. So it's really being very careful about the purpose of why you're using it, and then assessing where the benefit or the win is, and then iterating off of it if you're going to use it at all. Yeah, it's very important.
I hear you for sure. Anyone else want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I'd be hesitant to use any sort of like AI to talk to customers during beta, because like things are going to go wrong anyway, and so like having a human to be able to like deal with that, I think, is important. I think it's like great to use AI to help you like build out like what are some potential macros for these situations, and like you can ask it things to like develop things. I was doing that with a client earlier this week. I like put in a bunch of macros and I was like, can you give me some puns related to the company to like jog
that's
that
how
for
you
me.
was that one of ours?
Yeah,
because I was looking at the macros and I was like, wow, he's good. How do you do this? That was good.
No, I am not that creative. But so like that helped. And so yeah, I think it's good to use AI like in that way. And then if you want to plan long term for like rolling out an AI chatbot, like that's things you can start in the beta process, but I wouldn't like send it to customers while you're still trying to like validate everything else about your product.
Yeah. You want to add anything, Chloe?
I agree. I think to a certain extent it can be useful, but what could set your organization apart is having that super personal touch, and by just very limiting your AI.
It's okay. Chloe's got furry children. They're like, we want to join in.
They're like, oh, we heard about AI. We're on our way.
Right, exactly. Too funny. Okay, I lied to y'all. I said that was the last question, but then here comes Sasheen with her brilliance, and then she brings up a point that I have to just touch on before we go, and that is, which channels should you have open during beta? Well, I'll let you guys go first. I've got a feeling, because we're like-minded individuals, that we're all going to agree. But I'll tell you what I literally told one of our clients this week. But go ahead. Anyone have an opinion?
I always say, where is the easiest way? Once again, it depends on the business.
Yep.
If you're in the real estate industry, it may be phones. If you are kind of a low product that's for everyone, very simple, it may be a chat. That may be the main thing. Or, could be social media channels.
Yeah.
But minimal. Like, don't launch 15 channels and think that everybody's going to reach out, because your customer, if you've identified the correct customer and how you're marketing your product or service, there's going to be a specific channel that they're going to be coming in anyway, because that's where the funnel's coming in.
Right.
So at minimum, I would say email, of course. But, it depends on the business or service, but keep it minimal, keep it simple. Don't have 15, 20,000 channels, because it's not manageable and you don't have the team for it, So.
I think everybody thinks out of the gate they're supposed to have everything open, because they're like, it's going to be a good experience. I'm like, only if they can get to you. Other than that, it's just not good. Any other opinions on this one?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got, depends on how big your team is too. Like, I wouldn't recommend trying to do, and what your business hours are. Like, if you're trying to support 7 days a week, 8, 9, 10 hours, like, you need a big team to do that live. But if you've got like 1 or 2 people on like doing support, I think email's the way to go, or like maybe callback support, but like, yeah, I think keep it limited, and it's better to expand when you're confident than the opposite.
Agreed. Chloe, you have an opinion?
Yeah, I'd say start with email, get your processes down, get confident, and then you can open it up to the more faster paced things like phone and chat.
Yeah. And you guys I told you, I knew we were going to be on the same page. What I said to our client was, because when we first started working with them, they wanted full omni-channel, which I wasn't against. And I remember for beta, they were like, let's do chat. And I'm like, you do realize that chat is live. So there's an expectation that someone's going to reply to that message closer to real time than not, right? And at first it seemed like, yeah, that's fine. And then the closer we got to moving forward, it was like, we can't support that. Okay, got it. No problem. Understood. But yesterday we were talking about live channels as we move through the project. What are we going to open up when they get ready to officially launch? And the question comes up, should we do phones? And what I told them was, your decision to open up live channels should be, in that particular case, wholly based on the span of control of the people supporting the customer. In this instance, tech people are going to think I'm coming down on them. I'm not, but tech people, I hope that you are listening to the perspective of the CX team, right? What happens is tech is saying, we're admins to this system. You guys don't need admin access. You just tell us anytime something goes wrong, and then we fix it. Okay, cool. But if someone picks up the phone and says, I'm unable to sign in, they're expecting that the person on the other end is going to be able to help them to sign in. But the person on the other end can only contact tech, and tech is not going to take calls. So I think that what it comes down to, as far as what you should open up during beta, it encompasses everything that everyone here has said. One thing to think about, though, at the end of the day is, can the person who helps that customer solve their issue? If they're reliant on other departments, 80% of the time, don't turn on the live channel. It's just going to be frustrating, right? But if you're able to turn on that live channel, then be realistic about your support hours, because everyone wants to do 24/7 until they realize that there's a certain number of people that you have to have available just in case someone sends you an SMS message at 2:30.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And the cost of that as well, because it is expensive to have a 24/7 team.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at those metrics and the data, and you're going, our overnight shift only had 10 tickets. You know what I mean? It depends. Like, if you have a worldwide audience where you are slammed and people from different time zones, because they're the nature of your product, people are using it 24/7. Great.
Yeah.
You can support that concept of, yes, we need people because we have a certain amount of people contacting us every hour on the hour, and we need to have, it's demand, really.
Yeah.
But if you've got crickets, then you got to think about that whole process and saying, well, maybe we don't need that. And we need to be just setting expectations on when we're available, and make sure that our channels support customers when we're not there, so that we're able to get accurate information to be able to help them when we get back.
Yeah. And then also the type of product or service that you're offering, because I worked for a payment processor who supported small businesses. They had to be open 24/7 because, people, if someone can't process a payment, that's a big deal. versus, you know, maybe an apparel company where it is nice to have, you know, someone there, but it's not important enough that when I'm scrolling Instagram, you know, I mean, I don't know. That's just my opinion. But I also think we should consider the people who were asking to be awake between, you know, 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. just in case someone needs to order a new nail file. It's not fair. I don't know. That's probably unpopular, but those are my thoughts. All right. I think we have gone pretty deep on this one. I think at the end of the day, preparing for beta is really about creating a space to collect the feedback from your users. And you can still create a good experience, but you know, preparing those who are going to be a part of your beta to understand that, you know, there are going to be some things we're going to work out, because theoretically we think it's going to go like this, but you're going to help us to define the practical. I think if you look at, you know, beta through the lens of, you know, used for information, and you create those relationships, to Jordan's point, making sure that your tech partners know what is important, what needs to be fixed, what's changed, to Sashin's point, that you can understand the difference between a bug and user error, and defining that and helping your team to know what that is. And then to Chloe's point, make sure that you have resources on standby. You can have a successful beta, right? Or soft launch, but you'll have some information that's going to help you to prepare, but always be nimble, be ready to fix literally at the drop of a dime. So for that reason, I'll say it is worth it to invest in having your beta handled by someone who can make a change instantly, as opposed to someone who has to report that a change needs to get done. Just my thoughts. Anyone else have anything to add? No? Well, as usual, I enjoy talking to you guys. The brilliance of the mind, you know, it's good. It fills my soul. It fills my heart. But you know, it is Friday. CXC on Fridays, we're typically not in the office, but we have opened up the office to be able to do this, and hopefully this information that we're sharing gets to someone who can use it. I'd rather if 5 people can use this video to inform their leader about the you know, the good, the bad, the ugly of a beta and what they need, our work is done. I'd rather have 5 people who need it than 500 people who don't care about it. That's just my thought. All right, y'all. Well, it's been real. And I will see you on the next one, and that is for sure. All right. Talk to you later.